Yodobashi just released their top 10 camera sales, but there's something strange in the numbers. You're not going to believe who's in the number 1 position. Is it the Sony A9 II? Or could it be something much older? Before we get to the details, I simply have one ask. Please subscribe to this channel. It doesn't cost you anything, helps this channel grow, and keeps you up to date on the latest camera coverage. And we're going to start off the top 10 Yodobashi camera sales in reverse order. In the number 10 position, we have the Nikon Z30. It's a good solid camera and it's currently on sale $150 off, and that's with the 16 to 50 millimeter. And this is a pretty solid entry-level camera, a vlogging camera. It has a 20.9 megapixel sensor, 4K video up to 30 frames per second, and Full HD up to 120 frames per second. And continuous still shooting, 11 frames per second. And in 9th place, we have the competitor to the Nikon Z30, and that's the Sony ZV-E10, the Mark II. Also a double-lens zoom kit, and this one is seen as the market leader aimed at YouTubers and influencers, with a very accurate autofocus system and features like product spotlight. And while the Mark II isn't on sale, the original, the Mark I, is currently $100 off. And in 8th place, we have another Sony, but this camera's more top shelf. The A7R5 has a 61 megapixel sensor, the highest of any full-frame mirrorless camera on the market. It also features 8K video, 4K 60 frames per second, and Full HD up to 120 frames per second. In terms of continuous stills with a 61 megapixel resolution, it's able to handle 10 frames per second, and features dual CF Express Type A and SD card slots. And on the heels of Black Friday, it's still $500 off, although there is a wild rumor indicating that we might get a refresh in 2025. And in 7th place, we have the Canon EOS R6 Mark II, a camera that's done quite well, that's been on the market for a good part of 2 years. And I gotta say, I'm pretty impressed with the discount that we're seeing on this camera. It's currently $500 off. It's got a 24.2 megapixel sensor, 4K video up to 60 frames per second, 10-bit internal, Canon Log 3, the ability to process externally 6K Apple ProRes RAW, and a continuous shooting speed of up to 40 frames per second. That's RAW with the electronic shutter, and 12 frames per second with the mechanical shutter. And while it's got an update to its autofocus system, it's lacking that Digic accelerator chip that we see in the Canon EOS R5 Mark II and the EOS R1. But there are rumors that the R6 Mark III is going to get an update to the autofocus system, and we're willing to speculate that it's also getting that new Digic accelerator chip, which is really an AI processing chip. All right, now it's time to turn our attention to the number 6 spot. The Canon EOS R50 double-lens zoom kit is the direct competitor to the Nikon Z30 as well as the Sony ZV-E10. One could argue that it has better stills capabilities than the ZV-E10, but when it comes to video, well, the Sony ZV-E10 II is just a little bit better. The R50 features a 24.2 megapixel APS-C sensor, the Digic X image processor, 4K video up to 30 frames per second, and continuous still shooting at 15 frames per second. And it also gets that dual pixel autofocus system. In 5th place, we have the Sony a7C II. It features a 33 megapixel sensor, continuous shooting up to 10 frames per second, and a full-featured video camera with S-Log 3, S-Gamut 3, S-Cinetone, and 7 stops of image stabilization. Not currently on sale at $21.98, but if you're willing to get the older version, it is on sale at $100 off. In 4th place, this one shouldn't really be a surprise. It's the Canon EOS R5 Mark II, a camera that was announced on July the 17th and started shipping on August the 30th. And when it started shipping, boy, did they ship an awful lot of these cameras. It was in the number 1 spot for quite some time. So to see it drop down to 4th place isn't really a surprise. It's truly an impressive camera. I'm shooting with the R5 Mark I currently, and right here is the R5 Mark II. Now, in terms of video shooting, this is truly a wow camera. Waveforms, Canon Log 2, a stacked sensor, it produces much better dynamic range in video. Now in stills, it does have us scratching our heads a little bit, because if you're shooting at, let's say, 12,800 ISO, And if you're a birder, that's probably some spot where you're going to be working in. It produces more noise than the Mark I. And that is a bit of a surprise because a stack sensor takes all the circuitry from the front or the top of the photodiode and puts it to the very bottom. And that allows it to have a larger surface area to be able to capture more photons, to have a better signal to noise ratio. And that doesn't appear to be happening. So I don't know if it's a technical and architectural issue. Maybe they reduced the size of they didn't properly optimize the photodiode design. I don't know, but it's a surprise. I mean, we could see some update and a firmware update, or maybe this is Canon's way of getting us to save our money up for a Mark III. But either way, it's a top-selling camera. I think it's really terrific. Unlike the Mark I, this one feels, well, fully polished without any glaring major issues. Yes, we had a bunch of minor issues at the beginning, but I would say for the first 3 months or so, you're going to expect to see issues, minor ones, that will be corrected in a firmware update, not having to wait up to firmware 1.6 like we did for the Mark I. And in third place, we have the Sony a7C II. I know what you're thinking. We already had that in the 5th spot, right? Well, you see, this is a retailer reporting on their top 10 SKUs. So the A7C body alone has a different SKU than the A7C with a kit lens. I don't make up the rules. I'm just reporting them. So if you're upset with this, go ahead and talk to Yodobashi. However, if we were to glue these two together, there's a pretty good chance that we could see the Sony a7C just move up a little bit further in the top 10 list. But as they didn't report the exact number of units at each position, I'm unable to do that for you. Otherwise, I would, and I'd change the list. I'd call it the top 9. In second place, we have the Fujifilm X-M5 with the 15 to 45 millimeter f3.5 to 5.6. But everybody's wondering who's in number 1. And I've got to admit, I'm a little bit surprised by this myself. Now, if you already know the answer, just hold off. Don't jot it in the comments right away. For everybody else, take a wild guess at which camera's in the number 1 spot. It's not the Sony. It's not a Sony at all. It's not a Nikon. It's not a Pentax. Definitely not a Pentax. Would you believe it? It's actually the Canon EOS R1. Yeah, despite this camera being on Canon's apologies for not shipping page for 2 months now, and despite waiting 3+ months since the announcement back on July the 17th, the R1, despite being in a global shortage supply, it's number 1. This is the only suspect number that I have. Maybe just this is just some sort of regionalized. I think this has got to be just regionalized to Yodobashi in Japan, because everywhere else that I check, B&H, Adorama, the Canon EOS R1 is in short supply. We can't get it. And even when it started shipping, unlike the R5 Mark II, which shipped in the hundreds, the R1, it's been a tepid, I mean, we're talking about handfuls, maybe a dozen or two. And I know this because I'm able to look at the pre-orders that were registered with my account. And the R5 Mark II, there were hundreds, and they all cleared out within the first couple of weeks. But the R1, they're all still there. Yeah, I mean, I've seen a little bit of a drawdown, but at this point, it's hard to tell if that drawdown is people canceling or trying to find it somewhere else or not. The R1 is in the number 1 spot. For how long it's going to be there, I don't know. I can't imagine it's going to be there much longer because retailers just can't get them to be able to put them out the door. Interesting. I'm really surprised to see it in the number 1 spot. In fact, the R5 Mark II, I would have expected it to see it a little bit higher. But the R1, to displace Sony cameras and actually to dominate the top 10 is where Canon is right now. Well, we haven't seen that let me try that again. My throat is starting to seize up, so I'm having trouble speaking. Anyhow, I think this is a pretty interesting top 10. It's nice to see Canon and Sony doing well, but Nikon, well, we've only got 1 camera in the top 10, but I wouldn't be surprised to see if we get a refresh of some major cameras in 2025, like the Z9. But where's Pentax? Where's a few other cameras? I like to see the top 10 where it's filled with 5 different camera makers, but we're not seeing a lot here. However, If you're interested in getting some really good deals, a lot of the cameras that we've talked about today in the top 10 are on sale, and some of those sales are the best sales we've ever seen. The Z30 is $150 off. The R6 Mark II, $500 off. The A7C, the Mark I, not the Mark II, is $100 off. And the R50, depending on what kit you get, is also $100 off. With the biggest sale ever on the Sony a7R5 at $500 off. These and many more cameras can be found on sale. I've got 20 to 30 of the best cameras on sale in the description down below. I have my affiliate links right here. And if I could just ask one small favor, if you are interested in purchasing any of these cameras and lenses that are on sale from B&H and Adorama, then please consider using my affiliate links, because I get a small commission back, and quite literally, they help keep the lights on. They keep this channel supported and funded. And that's one great way that you get to support the channel. You get to purchase really great gear at a really good price and support this channel, the best of both worlds. And one of the benefits of doing that is, well, you'll notice on this channel, I don't have a Skillshare, a Squarespace, or any other 60 to 90 second ad at the beginning of the video. And they're all reaching out to me, including Skillshare. And I just say, no, thank you. I find most people use the ads on YouTube. You watch your pre-roll, and then, 10, 15 seconds in, you got to watch another 60 to 90 second ad. I don't like it. So that's why I'm using these affiliate links, and I put it right at the end of the video, not right at the beginning. Anyhow, I hope you're having a great week. We're just about 2 weeks to Christmas now. And honestly, take a look at a lot of the sales. It's cameras, it's lenses, it's accessories, it's storage, everything, including airfare too. So if you want to fly someplace to get a camera, they're on sale as well. But all kidding aside, some really great deals on right now. I happen to have picked up a 50mm f1.4. I'm just waiting for it to ship. Anyhow, thank you so much for tuning in. Have yourself a great day, a great week, and we'll see you again soon.